Why do centuries of conflict still shape the Muslim-Jewish relationship today? The relationship between Muslims and Jews is complex, multifaceted, and deeply rooted in a shared history that spans centuries. This intricate relationship is woven with threads of both cooperation and conflict, and understanding it requires a journey through time. It's a relationship marked by periods of relative peace and cooperation, where both communities thrive together, but also marred by conflict and mistrust, often influenced by the socio-political dynamics of the era. To understand the current state of affairs, we must first delve into the historical origins of this enduring tension, exploring the events and circumstances that shaped it, tracing its roots back to the 7th century Arabian Peninsula, a time of significant transformation and upheaval. In 622 CE, the Prophet Muhammad embarked on the Hijra, a journey from Mecca to Medina, marking a pivotal moment in Islamic history and setting the stage for future interactions. Medina at that time was inhabited by both Arab tribes and Jewish tribes, creating a unique and diverse social fabric. Initially, the Prophet sought to establish a peaceful coexistence with the Jewish community, as reflected in the Constitution of Medina, a document outlining the rights and responsibilities of various groups residing within the city, aiming for unity and mutual respect. However, this period of relative harmony was short-lived. Tensions arose between the nascent Muslim community and some Jewish tribes, driven by a complex interplay of political, economic, and social factors, leading to a series of conflicts that would leave a lasting impact on the region. These conflicts, often attributed to political and economic factors, were not merely religious in nature, but resulted in the expulsion or subjugation of certain Jewish tribes in Medina, altering the demographic and social landscape of the city. The events in 7th century Medina are crucial to understanding the historical backdrop against which subsequent Muslim-Jewish relations unfolded, providing context to the complexities we see today. While it is important to avoid oversimplification or generalization, recognizing the nuances and multiple layers of this history is essential. The early encounters in Medina cast a long shadow, influencing perceptions and narratives that have persisted through the ages, shaping perceptions and narratives that continue to resonate today, reminding us of the enduring impact of history on contemporary relations. The initial tensions in 7th century Medina marked the beginning of a long and complex history of conflict between Muslims and Jews. These early conflicts were rooted in both religious and political disagreements, as the nascent Muslim community sought to establish itself in a diverse and often hostile environment. Over the centuries, this conflict evolved, influenced by a myriad of political, social, and religious factors. The shifting dynamics of power, the rise and fall of empires, and the changing religious landscapes all played crucial roles in shaping the nature of Muslim-Jewish relations. The rise and expansion of Muslim empires led to the spread of Islam across vast territories, including regions where significant Jewish populations resided. This expansion often brought Muslims and Jews into closer contact, sometimes fostering cooperation, and at other times leading to conflict. In many instances, Jewish communities under Muslim rule experienced periods of relative tolerance, and were granted a certain degree of autonomy in managing their religious and communal affairs. These periods of coexistence were marked by cultural and intellectual exchanges that enriched both communities. However, there were also instances of persecution and discrimination, often linked to broader political and social dynamics within specific historical contexts. These periods of strife were influenced by external pressures, internal politics, and economic conditions that exacerbated tensions. The emergence of Zionism in the late 19th century, advocating for the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine, added a new layer of complexity to the Muslim-Jewish conflict. This movement was driven by a desire for a safe haven for Jews facing persecution in Europe and elsewhere. Palestine at the time was part of the Ottoman Empire and home to a predominantly Arab Muslim population. The diverse demographic makeup of the region included Christians, Jews, and other minority groups, all living under Ottoman rule. The Zionist movement's goal of creating a Jewish homeland in Palestine inevitably led to tensions with the existing Arab population. These tensions were fueled by competing national aspirations and fears of displacement among the local Arab communities. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire following World War I and the subsequent division of the Middle East by European powers further exacerbated these tensions. The arbitrary borders drawn by the Sykes-Picot Agreement disregarded the complex ethnic and religious landscape of the region. The British Mandate for Palestine, established in 1920, was tasked with creating a Jewish homeland while simultaneously safeguarding the rights of the existing Arab population, a seemingly impossible task that ultimately fueled further conflict. The Mandate period saw increasing violence and unrest as both communities struggled for control and recognition. The mid-20th century witnessed a dramatic escalation of the Muslim-Jewish conflict, culminating in two pivotal wars that reshaped the political landscape of the Middle East: the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and the 1967 Six-Day War. In 1948, following the end of the British Mandate for Palestine, the State of Israel declared its independence. This declaration was met with resistance from neighboring Arab states, leading to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The war resulted in a decisive victory for Israel, which expanded its territory beyond the borders initially envisioned in the United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine. The 1948 war had profound consequences for the Palestinian people. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were displaced from their homes, becoming refugees in neighboring countries. The war also led to the occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem by Jordan and the Gaza Strip by Egypt. The 1967 Six-Day War further solidified Israel's military dominance in the region. Following a preemptive strike against Egypt, Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. The war resulted in a humiliating defeat for the Arab states and further entrenched the Palestinian people under Israeli occupation. The aftermath of the 1967 war saw the Palestinian people living under Israeli military occupation in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. This marked the beginning of a long and arduous struggle for the Palestinian people, who found themselves under a new and harsh reality. The occupation brought with it harsh realities, including restrictions on movement, confiscation of land, and the expansion of Israeli settlements in the occupied territories. Daily life became a constant challenge, with Palestinians facing numerous obstacles in their quest for freedom and self-determination. In the late 1980s, Palestinian frustration with the occupation boiled over, igniting the First Intifada, a sustained uprising against Israeli rule. This grassroots movement saw widespread participation from all segments of Palestinian society, uniting them in their resistance. The Intifada, characterized by civil disobedience, protests, and armed resistance, lasted for 6 years and forced the international community to acknowledge the plight of the Palestinian people under occupation. It was a period of intense struggle and sacrifice, but also one of solidarity and hope. The Oslo Accords, signed in the mid-1990s, raised hopes for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. These agreements were seen as a significant step towards achieving a lasting peace and ending decades of hostility. The accords were intended to pave the way for a two-state solution, with an independent Palestinian state coexisting alongside Israel. This vision of peace, however, required mutual trust and cooperation, which proved to be elusive. However, the peace process faltered, hampered by continued violence, the expansion of Israeli settlements, and a lack of trust between the two sides. The optimism that once surrounded the Oslo Accords began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of disillusionment. The Second Intifada, which erupted in 2000, was a more violent and protracted affair. This uprising was marked by a significant escalation in hostilities, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. It was marked by suicide bombings and targeted killings, further deepening the cycle of violence and mistrust. The human cost of the conflict was immense, leaving deep scars on both Palestinian and Israeli communities. The Second Intifada ultimately led to a hardening of positions on both sides and a sense of despair about the prospects for peace. The dream of a peaceful resolution seemed more distant than ever, as the region continued to grapple with the enduring legacy of conflict and division. In the midst of the conflict, the humanitarian situation has deteriorated rapidly. Thousands of civilians find themselves caught in the crossfire, struggling to survive. Basic necessities like food, water, and medical supplies are in short supply, leading to widespread suffering. Aid organizations are working tirelessly, but the scale of the crisis is overwhelming. The international community watches, often feeling powerless to intervene effectively. The human cost of this conflict is staggering, and the world is reminded once again of the devastating impact of war on innocent lives. As the conflict raged on, the true cost of war became evident. Lives were lost, families torn apart, and communities destroyed. The brutality of the situation was undeniable, affecting millions of innocent people. It was a stark reminder of the harsh realities of war. The world watched in horror, yet remained divided. Nations took sides, alliances were tested, and the geopolitical landscape shifted. Some called for peace, while others fueled the flames of conflict. The division was clear, and the stakes were higher than ever before. The conflict soon posed a significant threat to global security. The instability spread beyond borders, impacting international relations and economic stability. The world faced a precarious situation, with the potential for widespread repercussions. It was a critical moment that demanded urgent attention and action. Amidst the chaos, hope for a resolution began to emerge. Diplomatic efforts intensified and conversations about rebuilding and reconciliation started to take shape. The path forward was uncertain, but the desire for peace and stability was a common goal. It was a challenging journey ahead, but one that held the promise of a brighter future.